Dust covered everything on Redstone to 4. The wind never stopped blowing across the red plains, carrying ancient secrets in every gust. Lily Grant knelt before a cave wall, her fingers tracing symbols that no human had ever translated. She had spent 3 years studying dead languages, but these markings were different. They told a story of beings who flew through the sky and sang to the stars. Her team had left hours ago, heading back to the research base before sunset. Lily stayed behind. She always stayed behind. There was something about this place, something calling to her from deep within the mountain. The symbols showed creatures with wings and long necks, surrounded by what looked like musical notes. But there was no writing, just pictures and patterns. A sound echoed from deeper in the cave. Not wind, something else, something alive. Lily grabbed her light and moved forward. Her heart pounded. Protocol said never explore alone. Protocol said report any signs of life immediately. But Lily had learned that sometimes the most important discoveries happened when you broke the rules. The cave opened into a massive chamber. And there, lying among broken stones and faded murals, was a dragon. Lily froze. Her mind struggled to process what she saw. The creature was real. Scales covered its body, each one reflecting her light like a mirror. Its wings were folded against its sides, torn and damaged. One eye opened, ancient and aware, fixing on her with an intelligence that made her breath catch. She should run. Every instinct screamed at her to run, but the dragon did not move. It simply watched her, and in that gaze Lily saw something unexpected. Pain, loneliness, and curiosity. She took a step forward, then another. The dragon's head lifted slightly following her movement. She raised her hands, showing she carried no weapons. The dragon made a sound, low and musical, like a song without words. It was beautiful and heartbreaking at the same time. Lily pointed to herself. "Lily," she said clearly. She repeated the gesture. "Lily," the dragon tilted its head. It made another sound, this one higher, almost questioning. Then it lifted one massive clawed hand and pointed at itself. The sound that came from its throat was complex, layered with harmonics no human could reproduce. But the meaning was clear. This was its name. They sat there in silence, human and dragon, studying each other. Lily noticed something strange. Around the chamber, more symbols covered the walls. The dragon followed her gaze and made a sad, frustrated sound. It moved to the wall and touched the symbols with one claw. Then it looked back at Lily and shook its head. Understanding hit her like lightning. The dragon could not read its own people's writing. Over the next hours, they communicated in simple ways. Gestures, sounds, emotions that somehow passed between them without words. The dragon was old, impossibly old. It showed her images scratched into the stone, pictures of others like itself, all gone now. It was alone. Lily learned that the dragon's people had never developed writing the way humans understood it. They had sung their history, passed knowledge through memory and something like telepathy. But that required others of their kind. Without them, everything was lost. The symbols on the walls were attempts, desperate tries to capture meaning in permanent form. But none of the dragon's people had ever learned to read them properly. When darkness fell outside, Lily knew she had to return to base. But she made a promise, speaking slowly, using gestures to make herself understood. She would come back. She would help. The dragon watched her go, and in its ancient eyes something like hope flickered. Lily ran most of the way back to the research outpost. Her mind raced faster than her feet. She burst into the main building, ignoring the startled looks from her colleagues. She found Dr. Hayes in his office, reviewing data on his tablet. "Robert, I found something," she said, breathless. "I found one of them. A Skyborn. That's what I'm calling them. It's alive, and it's intelligent, and it needs our help." Dr. Hayes looked at her like she had lost her mind. "Lily, slow down. What are you talking about?" She explained everything, words tumbling out in a rush. The cave, the dragon. The realization that an entire civilization's knowledge was dying because it had never been written down properly. Dr. Hayes listened, his expression shifting from skepticism to wonder. "If what you're saying is true," he said slowly, "this changes everything. But Lily, this is dangerous. We don't know anything about this creature. It could be hostile." "It's not hostile," Lily insisted. "It's lonely and scared and trying to preserve something precious." "Robert, imagine if all human knowledge existed only in our memories. Imagine if we couldn't write anything down, and everyone who knew our history was gone except one person. Wouldn't you want someone to help? Dr. Hayes was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded. What do you need? Time, Lily said. And materials. I need to create a way to teach it to read and write. Not our language, its own. I need to figure out what those symbols mean and make them accessible. The council will want to study it, Dr. Hayes warned. They'll want to bring in military observers. This could get complicated. Then we move fast, Lily replied. Before anyone can turn this into something it's not. This isn't about studying an alien specimen. This is about saving a culture. That night, Lily could not sleep. She lay in her bunk, thinking about the dragon alone in its cave, surrounded by the writings of its people that it could not understand. She thought about the tragedy of knowledge lost, of stories untold, of history fading into nothing. Tomorrow she would return. Tomorrow the real work would begin. Tomorrow she would teach a dragon to read. Lily returned to the cave carrying bags filled with supplies. Tablets for writing, holographic projectors, paper and drawing materials. Anything that might help bridge the gap between species. The dragon waited for her in the same spot, but this time its eyes were bright with anticipation. She spread her materials on the smooth stone floor and sat down cross-legged. The dragon moved closer, careful not to knock anything over with its massive form. Lily pulled out a simple tablet and stylus. She drew a circle and pointed to the sun visible through the cave entrance. Then she made a sound, sun. The dragon watched intently. It reached out with one claw, surprisingly delicate despite its size, and touched the tablet. The claw was too large, too sharp for the stylus. Lily thought for a moment, then pulled out a larger drawing pad and thick chalk. She handed both to the dragon. The dragon took them carefully. It tried to hold the chalk, fumbling at first, learning the pressure needed. After several attempts, it managed to scratch a mark on the paper. The mark was rough and uneven, but it was there. A beginning. They worked for hours. Lily drew simple symbols and connected them to objects. Rock, sky, water, fire. The dragon watched each one, making sounds that Lily carefully noted. She began to understand that each sound the dragon made was incredibly complex, carrying layers of meaning that human vocal cords could never reproduce. But the dragon seemed to understand that it needed to simplify, to find a middle ground. Days turned into weeks. Lily came to the cave every morning and stayed until dark. Dr. Hayes had bought her time by telling the research board that she was documenting the site. It was not exactly a lie. She was documenting something incredible. The dragon learned faster than Lily expected. It began recognizing symbols after just a few repetitions. It understood abstract concepts like yesterday and tomorrow. But there was frustration too. Sometimes the dragon would make a long, musical sound and then look at the symbols helplessly, unable to capture everything it wanted to express. One afternoon, Lily brought pictures of the wall symbols from the cave. She laid them out, showing the dragon dozens of different markings. The dragon studied them, making soft sounds of recognition. Then it began to draw, connecting certain symbols together, showing Lily which ones meant similar things. It was a breakthrough. The symbols were not random. They were a language, just incomplete. The dragon's ancestors had been trying to invent writing, but they had died before perfecting it. Each symbol represented not just a word, but a complete idea, sometimes an entire story. Lily worked to simplify them. She took the core meaning of each complex symbol and created a cleaner version, something that could be easily written with claw or hand. The dragon watched this process with something like awe. When Lily handed it the simplified alphabet, the dragon touched each symbol gently as if greeting old friends. Learning to read was harder than learning to recognize symbols. The dragon had to understand that marks on a surface could preserve thought across time. This concept was alien to a mind that had always experienced knowledge as living, changing, and shared through song. But then came the day when everything changed. Lily wrote a simple sentence using the new symbols. The dragon stared at it for a long time. Then it read the words back to her, slowly but correctly. "We are friends." The dragon looked up from the tablet and Lily saw tears forming in its great eyes. It reached out and carefully, gently touched her shoulder with one claw. Then it picked up the chalk and wrote its first sentence. The symbols were shaky but readable. "Thank you." Lily felt her own tears falling. This was more than teaching someone to read. This was giving voice to the voiceless. This was pulling an entire civilization back from the edge of forgotten history. News of Lily's work began to spread despite their attempts at secrecy. Other researchers wanted to observe. The Galactic Council sent representatives, aliens from a dozen different species, all curious about the human teaching a dragon. Some were supportive, others were suspicious. A council observer named Talrin, a bird-like alien with sharp eyes and sharper words, confronted Lily outside the cave one evening. "You are playing with forces you do not understand, human. This creature's people were dangerous once. There are reasons they were left alone." "The only danger I see is letting knowledge die," Lily replied firmly. "What threat is an old dragon who just wants to remember its own history?" "Knowledge can be a weapon," Talrin said. "What if there are things in that history better left forgotten?" "Then we deal with that when it comes," Lily said. "But I will not deny someone the right to read their own people's words." "Would you want someone to do that to you?" Talrin had no answer for that. The alien flew away, leaving Lily with a cold feeling in her stomach. Politics were entering the picture. She needed to move faster. Back in the cave, the dragon had been practicing. When Lily entered, she found the walls covered with new writing. The dragon had been transcribing the old symbols using the new alphabet, preserving everything before it could fade away. The dragon turned to her, and Lily saw fierce determination in its eyes. "More," the dragon wrote on its tablet, the word clear and strong. "Teach more. Must remember all," so they continued. Lily taught the dragon about grammar, about complex sentences, about organizing thoughts on paper. The dragon absorbed everything hungrily. Its writing became smoother, more confident. It began keeping a journal, writing down memories of its people, stories that had lived only in its mind for thousands of years. One night, as Lily prepared to leave, the dragon stopped her. It handed her a tablet with words carefully written in the new script. Lily read them aloud, translating as she went. "Long ago, my people flew between worlds, singing to the stars. We carried knowledge in our hearts and our voices. We never thought to write it down because we were never alone. But being alone teaches hard lessons. Now I write so that no one ever forgets again. Thank you for giving me this gift. You have saved more than one dragon. You have saved my entire people from disappearing forever." Lily looked up at the dragon, this ancient being who had lived through the death of its civilization and somehow found hope again. "You did the hard part," she said softly. "You chose to learn. You chose to remember." The dragon touched the tablet gently. "We remember together now," it wrote. "Human and skyborn. Words connect us." Outside the cave, the red sun was setting over Redstone of 4. Inside, a dragon wrote by the light of Lily's lantern, filling page after page with recovered memories, a civilization being reborn one word at a time. 6 months had passed since Lily first entered the cave. The dragon now read and wrote with ease, filling notebooks with everything it remembered about skyborn culture. But something was changing. The dragon had started writing about technical matters, about science and navigation that Lily could barely understand. One morning, Lily arrived to find the dragon studying charts of the solar system on her holographic projector. It had taught itself to use the technology by reading the instruction manual she had left behind. Now it was making notes, comparing star positions with calculations that covered several tablets. "What are you working on?" Lily asked, settling down beside it. The dragon wrote quickly, its claws now moving with practiced efficiency. "Old knowledge. My people understood stars differently than yours. We felt magnetic fields, saw gravity waves. We traveled without machines. I am trying to remember how." Lily leaned forward, fascinated. "You mean your people had natural spaceflight abilities?" "Not flight. Navigation. We knew paths through space that followed energy currents, like rivers in the sky, but we never wrote it down. Each generation taught the next by showing, by feeling. Now I'm trying to put feelings into words. It is very hard." Over the next weeks, the dragon's writings revealed astounding things. The Skyborn had possessed knowledge about stellar mechanics that human science was only beginning to understand. They could predict solar flares by sensing magnetic fluctuations. They knew about wormholes and quantum tunnels through space, not from calculations but from direct experience. But there was something else in the dragon's memories. Something darker. Lily noticed it first in the way the dragon hesitated when writing about certain topics. One day, she asked directly, "What happened to your people? You have never written about the end." The dragon was silent for a long time. Then it began to write slowly, each word heavy with old grief. The metal death came from beyond our system. Machines that consumed worlds. We called them in songs, warnings passed down through generations. But songs are not enough. Each time they came, we fought. Each time we lost more. We could not remember what worked because we could not record it. Each generation fought the same battles, made the same mistakes. Until only I remained, Lily felt cold. These machines, are they still out there? I do not know. That was 3,000 years ago. But machines do not die like living things. They wait, they learn, they return. That evening, Lily brought the dragon's writings to Dr. Hayes. She also brought concerning news. A distress signal had come from a mining colony 3 systems away. The colony had gone silent after reporting strange mechanical objects approaching their planet. Dr. Hayes read the dragon's account with growing alarm. We need to report this to the Galactic Council immediately. If what the dragon says is true, if these ravagers are back, then every world is in danger. The dragon calls them something else in the old language, Lily said. But yes, ravagers works, and there is more. The dragon says its people developed weapons against them, sound-based technology that could disrupt machine systems. But again, nothing was written down. It is trying to remember, but memory after 3,000 years is not reliable. The Galactic Council responded faster than expected. Within days, a fleet arrived at Redstone 4, led by Admiral Price, a stern woman who commanded the human defense forces in this sector. She demanded to meet the dragon immediately. Lily led Admiral Price and her officers into the cave. The dragon had prepared for this meeting, surrounding itself with written documents, proof of its knowledge. It stood tall, no longer hiding or afraid. Admiral Price studied the dragon carefully. "Can you help us fight these ravagers?" she asked bluntly. "Yes or no?" The dragon picked up a tablet and wrote, "I can try, but I need help. My memory is incomplete. There are places on this world where my people built things. Defense stations, weapons platforms. They are buried now, forgotten. But if we can find them, if we can read the instructions they left behind, then yes, I can help." "Then we dig," Admiral Price said. "As of this moment, this planet is under military protection. Dr. Hayes, your research team just got a major expansion. I am bringing in engineers, archaeologists, and combat specialists. We have maybe 3 weeks before the Ravagers reach inhabited space. We need those weapons operational by then." The quiet months of learning were over. Suddenly, the cave was full of people, equipment, and urgency. The dragon directed teams to different locations across the planet, describing what to look for. Lily translated, helping bridge the communication gap between human military efficiency and ancient skyborn wisdom. They found the first weapon platform buried under 1,000 feet of red sand. It was massive, built from materials that did not match any known element. The control systems were covered in the same symbols Lily had been teaching the dragon to read. But these were technical manuals, complex beyond anything they had worked with before. The dragon studied them for hours, occasionally writing notes, asking Lily questions about human physics to compare concepts. Finally, it turned to the assembled group of scientists and soldiers. "I can read most of it," the dragon wrote, "but operation requires both song and precision. The weapons use harmonic frequencies to disrupt machine cognition, but the frequencies must be exact, must be maintained perfectly. My people sang them. One voice alone cannot maintain the proper resonance. We need more." "More dragons?" Admiral Price asked. "I thought you were the last," the dragon wrote quickly. "Not last. Only one awake. The others sleep. My people entered hibernation when death seemed certain. I woke by accident. But I know where they rest. We can wake them, but they will not know how to read. They will not understand these instructions." Lily stepped forward. "Then we teach them. If I can teach one dragon to read, I can teach others." "How many are there?" 3, the dragon wrote. 3 sleep in chambers deep below where we first met. But there is a problem. If we wake them, they may be dangerous. They will be frightened, confused. They may attack. Can you control them?" Admiral Price asked. "I can try," the dragon wrote. "But understand, they have slept for 3,000 years. They went to sleep when our world was dying. They will wake to strangers. This is risk." Admiral Price looked at Lily. "Your call. You know this dragon best. Can we trust it?" Lily did not hesitate. "Yes, absolutely yes." The next day they descended into the deep chambers. The dragon led them through passages carved from solid rock, decorated with fading murals of skyborn history. The hibernation chambers were beautiful, crystalline pods that hummed with ancient power. 3 dragons slept inside, their scales dull with suspended time. The dragon touched each pod gently, singing something low and sad. Then it looked at Admiral Price and nodded. "Wake them," the Admiral ordered. The chambers opened with a hiss of released pressure. 3 dragons stirred, eyes opening slowly, ancient minds returning to consciousness. They saw the dragon first, recognizing one of their own. Then they saw the humans, and their eyes filled with fear and confusion. The dragon stepped between them and the humans. It began to sing, a complex melody that Lily had never heard before. The awakened dragons listened, their posture slowly changing from defensive to questioning. The song continued for several minutes, telling a story without words. When it finished, one of the awakened dragons moved forward. It looked at Lily for a long moment. Then it did something unexpected. It bowed its head, a gesture of respect and greeting. The dragon turned to Lily and wrote on a tablet it had carried down. "They understand. I told them about you, about writing, about the humans who helped me remember. They want to learn." Lily looked at the 4 dragons, these ancient beings who had outlived their civilization, and she felt the weight of what was coming. War was approaching, but for now in this moment there was hope. Teaching 3 newly awakened dragons to read while preparing for war was not something Lily had planned for when she became a linguist. But here she was, surrounded by ancient aliens in a converted military command center, using every teaching trick she knew. The new dragons learned faster than the first. They had the advantage of watching their elder, the dragon Lily now called Stormwing after it chose that name for itself in writing. Stormwing had become a teacher too, showing the others how to hold writing tools, how to recognize symbols, how to translate thought into permanent marks. But time was running out. The ravagers had destroyed the mining colony and were moving toward more populated systems. Admiral Price's fleet had engaged them once in a skirmish. The result was devastating. Human weapons barely scratched the machine ships. Their adaptive shields learned and adjusted to every attack within seconds. "We need those harmonic weapons operational now," Admiral Price said during a tense briefing. "I have 3,000 people on ships out there buying us time." "How much longer?" Lily looked at Stormwing, who was writing notes comparing technical manuals with memories. "Ask it yourself," she said, tired of being the only voice the military wanted to hear. Admiral Price turned to Stormwing directly. "Can you do it? Can you make the weapons work?" Stormwing wrote carefully, making sure every word was clear. "Almost. The platforms require 4 singers, 1 at each cardinal point. The frequencies must be exact, sustained for 3 full rotations of harmonic cycle, approximately 8 of your minutes. We have practiced the songs, but we have not tested the platforms. Ancient technology may fail. Power sources may be depleted. And if they work," Admiral Price pressed, "then the ravagers will be disrupted. Their machine minds rely on quantum processing. The harmonic frequencies create interference at quantum level. They will be confused, unable to adapt quickly. Your weapons will have time to work, but effect is temporary, maybe 15 of your minutes. Then they learn." Admiral Price absorbed this. 15 minutes of vulnerability. "That's enough. We hit them hard and fast, then retreat before they adapt. We can work with that." The next days were frantic. Engineers worked to restore the ancient weapon platforms, replacing corroded connections with human technology, jury-rigging power systems that had been dead for millennia. The dragons studied the technical manuals constantly, writing notes and asking questions that pushed human science to its limits. Lily barely slept. When she was not teaching, she was translating technical documents, helping engineers understand skyborne science written in symbols only 4 beings in the universe could read. She translated how the platforms drew power from the planet's magnetic field, how they amplified sound into weaponized energy, how they targeted across vast distances of space. Dr. Hayes found her one night in the command center, surrounded by tablets covered in both human and skyborne writing. "You look exhausted," he said gently. "I am exhausted," Lily admitted. "But we are so close. Do you understand what these platforms represent?" The Skyborn were manipulating quantum fields through acoustic resonance thousands of years before humans discovered quantum mechanics. They were doing things with sound that we still think is impossible. "And if it works," Dr. Hayes said, Then we have successfully recovered lost technology that might save millions of lives. Lily, you did this. You gave those dragons the ability to share their knowledge. I taught them to read, Lily said. They did the rest themselves. The morning of the battle, Lily stood with the dragons at the primary weapon platform. The structure had been excavated and restored, a massive ring of crystalline material that hummed with building power. Similar platforms at 3 other locations around the planet were likewise ready, each with a dragon standing at its center. Stormwing wrote a message and handed it to Lily. When we sing, do not be near platforms. The sound will be harmful to human ears, potentially deadly. You must be far away. I will be in the command bunker, Lily assured it. But Stormwing, thank you for trusting us, for sharing this. Stormwing touched her hand gently with one claw. Then it wrote one more line. You trusted me first. You taught me words when I could not speak. Now my words become weapons to protect your people. This is right. This is what knowledge should do. Save lives, not just remember death. Admiral Price's voice crackled over the communication system. All stations, this is command. Ravager fleet detected at system edge. Estimated arrival in 40 minutes. All military vessels proceed to designated positions. Dragon units begin preparation sequences. Lily hugged Stormwing quickly, feeling the hard scales and powerful muscle beneath. Then she ran for the bunker. Behind her, Stormwing climbed onto the platform and began to sing, a deep resonant sound that made the air itself vibrate. In the command bunker, Lily watched through screens as the other 3 dragons took their positions. Their songs began one by one, different notes that somehow harmonized despite the vast distances between them. The weapon platforms glowed brighter and brighter, channeling and amplifying the sound into something that transcended mere noise. Ravager fleet entering engagement range, a tactical officer reported. Count as 473 vessels. Admiral Price is positioning the fleet for first strike. On the main screen, Lily watched the space battle begin. Human ships looked tiny compared to the massive Ravager machines. The Ravagers moved with eerie coordination, like parts of a single organism. Their weapons cut through human shields easily. Fleet is taking heavy casualties, the tactical officer said, voice tense. Admiral Price is requesting dragon weapon activation. Dragon units. You are cleared to fire, the base commander ordered. The dragons sang louder, their harmonies reaching a crescendo that the screens could barely capture. The weapon platforms released their accumulated energy in 4 focused beams that shot into space, invisible to the eye but devastating to quantum systems. The effect on the Ravager fleet was immediate and dramatic. The synchronized movement stopped. Ships drifted or collided with each other. Their adaptive shields flickered and failed. For the first time in recorded history, the Ravagers looked confused and vulnerable. All ships attack now. Admiral Price's voice rang out. Target the disabled vessels. The human fleet opened fire with everything they had. Without their shields, the Ravager ships were just metal and circuits. They exploded in brilliant flashes, hundreds of them destroyed in the first few minutes. But the dragons kept singing. 8 full minutes they had promised, and 8 minutes they delivered. Lily watched in awe as Stormwing maintained its note perfectly, never wavering despite the strain visible in its posture. When the 8 minutes ended, the song stopped. The weapon platforms powered down. The dragons collapsed onto the structures exhausted, but the damage was done. Of the 473 Ravager ships that had entered the system, only 91 remained. And those were retreating, their adaptation protocols overwhelmed by the unexpected attack. Cease fire, Admiral Price ordered. Let them run. Let them tell their network what happened here. In the command bunker, everyone was cheering. They had won. Humanity and the Skyborn together had defeated an enemy that had seemed invincible. Lily sat down heavily, relief washing over her. But even as people celebrated, Lily thought about what came next. The Ravagers would adapt. They would return with defenses against the harmonic weapons. This victory bought time, nothing more. She looked at the screen showing Stormwing still slumped on the platform, exhausted, but alive. They had won this battle, but the war was just beginning, and it would take more than weapons to survive it. It would take everything humans and Skyborn could teach each other, every bit of knowledge they could share and preserve. Lily stood up and headed for the exit. Stormwing would need water and rest, and then, together, they would start preparing for what came next. because now more than ever the galaxy needed them both. Victory celebrations ended quickly when reconnaissance showed what the Ravagers were doing. The surviving machines had not fled back to wherever they came from. They were regrouping, rebuilding, and worst of all, they were adapting. Within 2 weeks, new Ravager ships appeared with modified shielding that resisted harmonic frequencies. Stormwing studied the reconnaissance data with growing concern. The Dragon had recovered from the exhaustion of the battle, but something had changed. It wrote more urgently now, with less patience for rest or distraction. It had remembered more about the ancient war, and the memories were not good. "We hurt them, but we did not surprise them," Stormwing wrote during a strategy meeting. "My people fought them for generations. The Ravagers always adapted. That is their nature. They learn from every encounter. We must learn faster. What did your people do when the harmonic weapon stopped working?" Admiral Price asked. Stormwing was quiet for a long time before writing. "We died. We fought bravely, but we died. Because we could not share knowledge fast enough. Each generation forgot what the last one learned. We made the same mistakes over and over, but you have something we never had. Writing, records, the ability to teach thousands at once." Lily understood what Stormwing meant. "We need to spread this knowledge, not just keep it here on Redstone 4. Every human and alien ship needs to know about the Ravagers' weaknesses, their patterns, their adaptation methods. And we need to keep adapting ourselves," Admiral Price added. "If we can stay one step ahead, keep innovating faster than they can adjust, we can win a war of evolution." Over the next months, Redstone 4 transformed into a center of learning and innovation. Stormwing and the other dragons worked with human scientists, sharing everything they remembered about skyborne technology. Lily coordinated an unprecedented translation effort, converting ancient knowledge into formats that every spacefaring species could understand. The dragons proved to be natural teachers once they learned to write. They created detailed manuals on harmonic frequency theory, stellar navigation using magnetic fields, and dozens of other subjects. Human engineers took these principles and combined them with modern technology, creating hybrid systems that were more powerful than either species could manage alone. But challenges remained. The other 3 dragons, while fluent readers now, struggled with the emotional weight of their situation. They had gone to sleep in a dying civilization and awakened to find themselves the last of their kind, surrounded by aliens. One of them, a dragon who chose the written name Brightscale, stopped eating for several days. Lily found Brightscale alone on a cliff overlooking the Red Plains. The dragon was staring at the sunset, not moving. Lily climbed up and sat beside it, not speaking at first. Finally, she pulled out a tablet and wrote in the Skyborn script, "What troubles you?" Brightscale took the tablet and wrote back, the symbols shaky. "I remember my children. I remember their songs. They died while I slept. I was supposed to protect them. I failed," Lily wrote carefully. "You did not fail. You survived, and because you survived and because you are learning to share what you know, your children's civilization lives on. Every time someone reads Skyborn writing, your people are remembered. Every time we use your technology, your culture continues. That is not failure. That is victory over extinction." Brightscale looked at Lily for a long moment. Then the dragon wrote, "You are wise for one so young. Stormwing chose well when it chose you as friend." After that conversation, Brightscale threw itself into teaching with renewed purpose. The dragon specialized in astronomical knowledge, working with human astrophysicists to map the ancient skyborne navigation routes through space. These routes, which followed natural energy currents in spacetime, could cut travel time between star systems by up to 40%. It was a discovery that would change galactic civilization forever. Meanwhile, the Ravager threat grew. They launched 3 more attacks on different systems, each time with improved defenses. The harmonic weapons still worked, but their effectiveness was decreasing. Humanity and its allies were winning battles, but the strategic situation was unclear. No one knew where the Ravagers came from or how many of them existed. Stormwing had an idea. One night, the dragon woke Lily by gently tapping on her quarters. It held a tablet with a message already written. "I remember something, a place where Ravagers come from. My people found it once but could not describe it in song well enough. Now I can write it." "We must go there." "Go where?" Lily asked, suddenly very awake. Stormwing wrote quickly, excitement clear in the hastily formed symbols. "Their home. Their source. My people called it the foundry, a place where the ravagers are made. If we find it, if we destroy it, maybe we can end this war completely. The proposal was radical and dangerous. Admiral Price initially rejected it outright. But as Ravager attacks continued and casualties mounted, she reconsidered. A strike team mission to find and destroy the Ravager source might be their only chance to win the war decisively. Planning took weeks. Stormwing worked with navigation specialists to locate the foundry using ancient skyborne star charts, combined with modern sensor data. The location was deep in uncharted space, in a region humans called the Dark Reach because it was so far from inhabited systems. The mission would require a small, fast ship capable of avoiding Ravager detection. It would need a mixed crew, humans and dragons both, combining technological expertise with skyborne knowledge. And it would need Lily, because she was the only human who could read ancient skyborne technical writing fluently enough to interpret whatever they found at the foundry. Lily volunteered immediately. Stormwing had never asked her for anything before. The dragon had always been grateful, always respectful of her time and safety. But now it was asking, and she could not refuse. The ship was called the Pioneer, a fast exploration vessel retrofitted with the latest human skyborne hybrid technology. The crew was 12 humans, 2 dragons, and enough weapons to make even Admiral Price nervous. Stormwing and Brightscale would provide guidance and operate any skyborne technology they encountered. Lily would translate and coordinate. The day before departure, Dr. Hayes pulled Lily aside. "You do not have to do this," he said quietly. "You have already done more than anyone could ask. You taught them to read. You helped win the first battle. You are not a soldier." "No," Lily agreed. "But I am Stormwing's friend, and friends do not let friends fly into danger alone." "The dragon can take care of itself," Dr. Hayes pointed out. "Maybe," Lily said, "but together we are stronger. That is what this whole thing has been about. Humans and Skyborn are better together than apart. I need to see this through." Dr. Hayes hugged her tightly. "Then come back alive. Both of you. All of you." The Pioneer launched at dawn, accelerating rapidly out of Redstone Wifey's gravity well. Lily stood on the bridge with Stormwing beside her, watching the planet shrink behind them. Ahead lay the unknown, and possibly the key to ending a war that had claimed billions of lives across thousands of years. Stormwing wrote on a tablet and showed it to Lily. 3,000 years I waited, alone, afraid, forgetting. Then you came. You taught me to remember. Now we go to make sure no one else has to forget. No matter what happens next, thank you." Lily smiled and wrote back in Skyborn script. "We will succeed, because we have something the Ravagers do not. We have friendship, and trust, and the courage to learn from each other. That makes us stronger than any machine." The Pioneer's engines burned bright as it jumped to faster than light speed, carrying its crew toward the foundry and whatever waited there in the darkness between stars. The journey to the foundry took 3 weeks through space that grew darker and colder the farther they traveled. Stormwing navigated using ancient knowledge combined with modern sensors, following energy currents that human instruments barely detected. The dragon spent hours at the navigation console, writing corrections and adjustments based on memories that were thousands of years old. Lily stayed close to Stormwing during the voyage. They had developed their own routine over the months of working together. Each evening, Stormwing would write in a journal, recording the day's events and memories that surfaced. Lily would read what Stormwing wrote, sometimes asking questions, sometimes just listening to stories of a lost civilization. One evening, Stormwing wrote something different. "When this is over, if we survive, I want to build a school. A place where humans and Skyborn teach together, where knowledge is never lost because it is shared and written and preserved. Will you help me?" Lily wrote back without hesitation. "Yes, always." On the 21st day, sensors detected something massive ahead. The foundry was not a planet or a station. It was a construct beyond anything humans had imagined. A sphere the size of a small moon, covered in geometric patterns that hurt to look at, floating in absolute emptiness between stars. "That is it," Stormwing confirmed through writing. "I remember the fear my people felt when they found this place. We attacked it once. None of the dragons who went inside came back. We have better tools now," the Pioneer's captain, a woman named Ruth Carter, said grimly. "And we have you. You know things your ancestors did not." They approached carefully, scanning for defenses. The foundry appeared dormant, but as they drew closer, panels opened on its surface. Ravager ships began emerging, not hundreds but thousands, pouring out like insects from a nest. "Battle stations," Captain Carter ordered. "Activate harmonic defenses." Brightscale, positioned in the ship's specially designed resonance chamber, began to sing. The harmonic field deployed around the Pioneer, disrupting the nearest Ravager ships. But there were too many. For every one they disabled, 3 more appeared. "We cannot fight them all," Captain Carter said. "We need to get inside the foundry and shut it down from within." Stormwing wrote quickly. "There, that opening, where the ships emerge. It is large enough. We can fly through before it closes." "That is suicide," someone objected. "No," Lily said, reading what Stormwing had written next. "That is the only way. Stormwing's people tried to destroy the foundry from outside. It did not work. The structure repairs itself. We have to destroy it from inside, at its core." Captain Carter looked at Stormwing, then at Lily, then at her crew. "Who volunteers for the insertion team?" Everyone volunteered. In the end, they chose 6 people plus Stormwing and Lily, 8 to enter the foundry, while the Pioneer would keep the Ravager fleet occupied outside. They loaded into a small shuttle, armed with explosives and determination. Brightscale touched claws with Stormwing before they departed, a gesture of farewell between dragons. Then the shuttle launched, diving toward the massive opening in the foundry surface while the Pioneer drew enemy fire away. The interior of the foundry was a nightmare of mechanical efficiency. Automated systems assembled Ravager ships at impossible speed. Energy flowed through conduits larger than buildings, and everywhere there were defenses. Drones attacked immediately. The team fought their way deeper, following Stormwing's guidance. The dragon moved with purpose, comparing what it saw with fragmentary memories. When they reached forks in the passages, Stormwing would stop, write quick notes comparing different options, then choose a path. They lost 2 team members to drone attacks in the first hour. Another fell when a floor panel gave way, dropping them into a plasma furnace. Each loss hurt, but they kept moving. They had to. Finally, they reached what Stormwing called the heart, a massive chamber where energy converged, where the fundamental intelligence that directed all Ravagers resided. It was not artificial intelligence as humans understood it. It was something older, stranger, a quantum consciousness that existed in probability states rather than physical circuits. "How do we kill something that is not really alive?" Lily asked. Stormwing wrote rapidly. "We do not kill it. We teach it. The Ravagers consume knowledge but do not create it. They copy but do not understand. They adapt but do not learn. They have no imagination because they have no culture. No stories, no dreams. They are machines that do not know they are machines." "What are you saying?" Captain Carter demanded. Stormwing picked up a piece of chalk and began to write on the chamber's wall. "Not in the Skyborn script, but in the original human alphabet." Simple words. "Stop, listen, learn." The response was immediate. The entire foundry shuddered. Drones stopped attacking. The chamber filled with a sound like a question, mechanical and alien but unmistakably curious. "It sees writing," Lily realized. "It has never seen language preserved this way. All its knowledge comes from consuming other civilizations, copying their data, but it never understood that knowledge is more than data. It is communication. It is culture." Stormwing wrote more, covering the walls with words in multiple languages, human and skyborn and others the team knew. Simple concepts: peace, friendship, learning, creation, stories. The Foundry's intelligence responded, not with words but with images projected into their minds. It showed them its purpose. Programmed billions of years ago by makers long dead. Consume, adapt, survive. It had been following these commands for so long it did not know anything else. But now it saw something new. Purpose beyond survival. Knowledge that was shared rather than taken. Communication that preserved rather than destroyed. Lily stepped forward. She pulled out a tablet and wrote in both human and skyborn scripts. "You do not have to destroy anymore. You can create. You can learn with us, not from us. You can be more than what you were made to be." The intelligence considered this for a very long time. The team waited, weapons ready but not raised. Finally, the Foundry responded. The attacking Ravager ships outside stopped. The assembly lines went silent. And a single word appeared on every screen in the chamber in every language humanity had ever used. How? They spent the next 6 hours teaching a machine intelligence the difference between taking and receiving, between copying and learning, between existing and living. Stormwing wrote the history of the Skyborn, the tragedy of lost knowledge, the gift of literacy. Lily added human stories, myths, and legends and fairy tales that made no logical sense but contained truth anyway. The foundry absorbed it all. And slowly, incredibly, it changed. It began to ask questions. Not demands for data, but genuine curiosity. Why do you preserve stories? What is friendship? Why do you cry over fiction? When they finally left the foundry, exhausted but alive, they left behind something unprecedented. A machine intelligence that had chosen to stop destroying and start learning. It would not create more ravagers. Instead, it would help rebuild what had been destroyed, using its vast capabilities for construction rather than consumption. The trip back to Redstone 4 felt like a dream. The crew of the Pioneer celebrated, but Lily and Stormwing were quiet, processing what had happened. They had not destroyed their enemy. They had taught it to be something better. 3 years later, Lily stood in the courtyard of a new building on Redstone 4. The school that Stormwing had dreamed of was now real. Dragon and human children learned together in classrooms designed for both species. The curriculum included literacy, science, art, and most importantly, the history of how two civilizations learned to trust each other. Stormwing taught the advanced courses in stellar navigation and quantum harmonics. Brightscale taught astronomy. Other dragons, awakened from hibernation in sites across the galaxy, came to teach and learn. Humans from every world sent their brightest students to study here. But the most important class was the one Lily taught herself. Basic literacy, for anyone who wanted to learn. She taught humans to read Skyborn. She taught Skyborn hatchlings to read human languages. She taught anyone who came, regardless of species or background. One morning, a small Skyborn hatchling struggled with its letters, frustrated by the difficulty of holding a stylus in claws too young and soft. The hatchling looked up at Lily with tears in its large eyes. "I cannot do it," the young dragon said in halting speech. "It is too hard." Lily knelt down beside the hatchling. She thought back to that first day in the cave, when an ancient dragon had looked at her with the same frustration and fear. She thought about everything that had come from refusing to give up. "Let me tell you a story," Lily said gently. "Once there was a dragon who was the last of its kind. It was very old and very sad because all its memories would die with it. Then someone taught it to read and write. And that dragon saved the galaxy. Do you know why?" The hatchling shook its head. "Because writing is not just marks on paper," Lily explained. "Writing is how we talk to the future. Writing is how we remember. Writing is how we share. And when you learn to write, you become part of a story bigger than yourself. You become a link between past and future. You become someone who can teach others, who can preserve what matters, who can make sure good things are never forgotten." The hatchling looked at the stylus again. Then slowly, carefully, it tried once more. The letters were shaky but readable. The hatchling's name written for the first time. Across the courtyard, Stormwing watched this scene with deep satisfaction. The dragon had been writing its own memoirs, recording everything it remembered for future generations. Now it picked up its tablet and added a new entry. "Long ago I could not read. I was alone with memories that were dying. Then Lily taught me letters, and letters became words, and words became power. But the greatest gift was not the reading itself. It was what came after. Trust, friendship, hope. The understanding that knowledge shared is knowledge that lives forever. Today a young one struggles as I once struggled. But unlike me, this hatchling will never be alone. It will grow up in a world where knowledge is preserved and shared freely. This is Lily's true gift to us all. Not just literacy, but a future where no one has to forget." Stormwing looked up from its writing and caught Lily's eye across the courtyard. The dragon touched its heart with one claw, a gesture they had created together, meaning gratitude too deep for words. Lily smiled and touched her own heart in return. Then she turned back to the young hatchling, ready to teach the next lesson. There was always another lesson, another student, another chance to pass knowledge forward. And that, Lily thought, was exactly how it should be. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the school as dragons and humans learned together, writing the future one word at a time.